Someone stops in the kitchen doorway for half a second before they say anything. You notice it. You always notice it. Nothing happened. You weren't angry. You weren't even busy. You were sitting there with coffee that went cold 20 minutes ago. But they took the half second anyway, the way people test a step before putting their weight on it. Here's what nobody tells you about that pause. It isn't about anything you did today. It was built years ago and you helped build it. I'm Daniel Rivera. I'm 56, and on this channel I take the words people use to describe our generation and try to find out where those words actually came from. If that's the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe. That's the whole pitch. Now back to the doorway. Because it isn't only the doorway. It's the coworker who sends a 4-line email to ask a question they could have asked out loud from 8 feet away. It's your sister calling your other sister first to see how you're doing before she calls you. It's the person who starts a sentence with, "Don't take this the wrong way," when you have never once in your entire life taken anything away that would justify that warning. It's the phrase you've probably heard at least once in a performance review, in that soft corporate voice that has never in history preceded good news. Something about being more approachable. Approachable, as if you were a parking structure. And here's the contradiction that makes this worth 20 minutes of your time. You didn't get intimidating by being loud. Almost nobody who gets described this way is loud. You got here by being calm. By being the person who didn't react, didn't panic, didn't raise your voice, didn't make a scene, didn't make it about yourself. You spent decades making yourself easy to be around, and somehow you ended up as the person people rehearse for. That's not a personality flaw. That's a mistranslation, and the reason it's worth understanding is that mistranslations don't fix themselves, they compound. Let's start with what people actually mean when they say you're intimidating, because it isn't fear. Almost nobody is afraid of you. What they mean is closer to this: they can't predict you. Most people broadcast constantly. Their face runs a live feed of their internal weather. Mild concern, growing irritation, relief, boredom. You can read them across a room. It's exhausting for them and convenient for everyone else, because it means you always know where you stand before you open your mouth. You don't do that. You went quiet on the outside a long time ago, so when someone comes to you, they don't get a preview. They get a closed door and a decision behind it, and they have to knock without knowing what's on the other side. That half-second pause in the doorway isn't fear of you. It's the cost of not having a preview. So where did the preview go? The first layer is the one you share with almost everyone your age, regardless of where your family came from. And it has less to do with childhood than people assume. It has to do with the offices we walked into in our 20s and 30s. We entered the workforce in the middle of an ongoing demolition. Restructuring, downsizing, reorganizations announced in all-hands meetings by someone who kept saying the word exciting. And the unwritten rule in those rooms was simple, and everybody learned it fast. Don't bring problems, bring solutions. Don't think out loud, don't process in public. Show up with the finished answer. Think about what that actually trains. It trains you to hide the middle. Everybody sees your conclusions, nobody sees your reasoning. You did the doubting in your car in the parking lot before you came in. You did the worrying at 2 a.m. By the time anyone saw your face, the face had already been decided, and it worked. Let's be honest about that, because this channel isn't going to pretend that a strategy that carried you for 30 years was a defect the whole time. Hiding the middle is exactly what made you dependable. You were the person who didn't add noise. 20 people in a crisis, 19 of them narrating their feelings about the crisis, and you sitting there reading the actual document. That's not coldness. That's competence. And competence like that gets you the keys, gets you the responsibility, gets you the call at 11 at night when something breaks. But there's a second layer, and this one isn't universal. If it doesn't describe your family, let it go by. Plenty of people watching this got here through a completely different door. If it does describe your family, though, it might be the biggest piece of the whole thing. In a lot of Latino households, composure in front of outsiders wasn't a personality trait. It was a job. There's a specific memory a lot of people have, and it usually involves a room with bad chairs. A bank, a school office, a clinic, a landlord's kitchen table. Somewhere your family was being evaluated by someone who had the power to say no. And the instruction in the air, nobody had to say it out loud, was that you do not give them anything to use. You don't get upset in front of them. You don't beg. You don't let them see the house shake. Whatever this costs us, they don't get to watch us pay it. That's not repression. That's a dignity management under observation. And when you're the family member with the best English or the most schooling, or just the steadiest hands, that job lands on you permanently. You learn a specific voice. Flatter, slower, more formal than how you talk at home. Because you found out early that the warm version of you got talked over, and the serious version got answered. You didn't invent that register to intimidate anyone. You built it because it was the only one that worked in rooms designed to dismiss your family. Then you took it to work. Then you took it to your marriage. Then you took it to the parent-teacher conference for your own kid, 30 years later, out of pure reflex. Which brings us to the third layer, the most specific one, and probably the one that sealed it. At some point, you became the person who delivers verdicts. You're the one who reads the paperwork. The diagnosis, the lease, the estimate from the mechanic, the letter from the insurance company written in a font that seems legally required to cause despair. Everyone else waits while you read it. And they don't wait quietly. They watch your face because your face is going to tell them what the news is before your mouth does. So you trained your face to give them nothing until you were sure. That was mercy. Genuinely. You didn't want the room to panic at paragraph 2 when the answer was in paragraph 6. You held your expression steady so nobody would start grieving something that turned out to be fine. Do you see what that built? A face that goes completely still at exactly the moments that matter most to the people around you. Your stillness is attached in their nervous system to bad news arriving. They don't know that. You don't know that. But it's why a perfectly neutral expression from you lands harder than shouting from somebody else. Now, I know where this normally goes, so let me get in front of it. The easy version of this video says your parents were emotionally unavailable, that nobody in your house named their feelings, and that you inherited a frozen face from people who never learned to use theirs. You've heard that explanation. It's everywhere. And I think it's mostly lazy, because it skips the part where those adults were making a calculation, and the calculation was usually correct. A parent working 2 jobs who comes home and does not fall apart in front of the kids is not emotionally unavailable. That parent is rationing. They've got a finite amount of composure, and they've decided where it gets spent, and it gets spent in the room where the children are. What you learned in that house wasn't absence. It was triage. And the difference matters enormously because if you inherited absence, then something is missing in you and you have to go find it. But if you inherited triage, nothing is missing. You learned a resource allocation strategy from people operating under real constraints, and you're still running it in a life that has different constraints now. That's a much more useful problem. You don't have to become a different person. You have to notice that you're still budgeting for a shortage that, in a lot of areas of your life, ended a while ago. There are 3 costs to this, and they don't show up at the same time. They arrive in order, and the third one is the reason I wanted to make this video at all. The first one you can verify today. You get the edited version. People bring you conclusions instead of situations. Your adult kid doesn't tell you about the problem. They tell you about the problem after they've handled it. In the past tense with a reassuring summary attached. Your team at work solves things around you and presents you with a decision that's already been made. Somebody in your family has been sick for 3 weeks, and you find out in week 4, and when you ask why nobody said anything, you get the sentence, you know the sentence. We didn't want to worry you. That sentence is the receipt. It means people have decided you're structural. You're load-bearing. You hold up the roof, and you don't tell the roof about problems. You just try not to add weight to it. And here's the small, ugly detail. You're not being protected from stress. You're being protected from being seen having a reaction. Those aren't the same thing, and only one of them is a compliment. The second cost is harder, and I'd rather say it plainly than dance around it. Somewhere along the way, you noticed it works, and you started using it. Not maliciously, not as a plan, but you found out at some point that if you just don't say anything, the other person will fill the silence themselves. They'll negotiate against themselves. They'll walk their request back down. You found out that the flat voice ends an argument faster than a good argument does. That not reacting when someone is trying to get a reaction is the most effective thing you can do to them. That in a meeting, saying nothing and letting the pause stretch will get you a better outcome than the 20 minutes of explaining you used to do at 30. You didn't build the silence as a weapon, but you have picked it up as one, at least a few times, and you knew you were doing it. I'm not saying that to make you feel bad about it. It's an incredibly efficient tool and most people never learn it. But a tool you use on purpose isn't the same as a wall you can't help. And the mixing of the two is the reason the people closest to you can't tell which one they're standing in front of. When you go quiet, they don't know if that's your armor or your aim. So they guess. And most people, when they're guessing about someone with authority over their life, guess the version that hurts them. That's the half second in the doorway. They're not scared of you, they're calculating. The third cost is the one tied to time, and it's the only one here that doesn't reverse on its own. At 30, people push through the flat face. A friend at 30 says, "No, seriously, what's wrong with you?" and keeps going until you crack. At 55, people don't push. They conclude. They take the closed door as a final answer because they've decided you're a finished person now. Someone with a fixed shape, whose quiet is an established fact rather than a mood. Nobody knocks twice on a door that's been closed for 20 years. They just stop coming down that hallway. And the arithmetic on that is not in your favor. The number of people willing to do the work of translating you is going down every year. Through distance, through divorce, through busy adult kids, through friends who moved, through the 2 or 3 funerals that have already happened. The people who could read you were people who'd known you a very long time. You are not making many more of those. So the risk isn't that you end up surrounded by people who fear you. It's quieter than that. The risk is that you end up perfectly respected and slightly out of range. Consulted for decisions, informed after the fact, told the summary of the lives of the people you built everything for. And there's a version of that third cost that happens 1 floor down with people who are still forming. If there are kids around you, your own, grown or not, or grandkids, or the niece who ends up at your house every summer, watch what they do when they walk into a room you're in, not what they say, what their shoulders do. Some of them scan you first. They read the face, get the temperature, and only then decide which version of the story they're going to tell you. They learned that from somewhere, and it wasn't from anything you said. You never taught it. It got absorbed, the way kids absorb everything you didn't mean to demonstrate. And the thing about a manual that was never written down is that it can't be corrected. They're going to carry a whole theory about what your quiet means, and unless somebody says it out loud, that theory is the one that goes to your funeral. That's not a guilt trip. It's just a timeline. You have a window where the record can still be amended by you rather than guessed at by them, and that window is not permanently open. There's research on this, and I want to be careful with it, because it isn't a study about our generation, and it isn't a study about Latinos specifically. It's about adults in general. Psychologists who study emotion regulation draw a line between reframing how you feel about something and simply keeping the expression off your face. That second one, suppressing the outward signals, shows up in their work as unusually costly. Not just for the person doing it, which you'd expect. For the person on the other side of the conversation, people talking to someone whose face gives them nothing report feeling less connected, and their own stress response goes up while they're doing it. The listener is working harder and doesn't know why. That's the mechanism in a sentence. Your stillness doesn't make the room calmer. It moves the effort onto everyone else and hides the invoice. And it costs you something at work too, in a way that's hard to prove but easy to feel after 50. The EEOC has documented for years that workers over 45 report broad experience of being read as past their moment. And once that assumption is in the room, a still face stops reading as seasoned and starts reading as checked out. Same expression, different verdict. You didn't change. The lighting did. It's the same logic that decided a quiet person in a meeting is disengaged, while the person narrating every thought into the chat window is a collaborator. We have built an entire professional culture that mistakes volume for presence, then installs a new app every 11 weeks to measure it. So here's the part I actually wanted to get to. Everyone in your life has a theory about your silence, and every one of those theories is wrong in the same direction. They think it points at them. Your kid thinks the flat face is disappointment in them. Your coworker thinks it's judgment of them. Your partner thinks it's distance from them. None of it was ever aimed outward. That's the whole error. You went unreadable so that the people in the room wouldn't have anything scary to read. You made your face give nothing so nobody would panic before it was time to panic. You kept the middle hidden, the doubt, the arithmetic, the 2 in the morning, because you decided, without ever putting it into words, that you'd rather carry the uncertainty alone than hand out pieces of it to people who couldn't do anything with them anyway. That's not coldness. That is one of the most protective things a person can do, and it was so completely selfless that it erased its own evidence. You made a shield, and because a shield from the outside looks exactly like a wall, everyone assumed it was built against them. It wasn't built against them. It was built over them. You're not hard to talk to. You're hard to read, because someone had to be unreadable, and you volunteered before anyone asked. Now, what do you do with that? Not much, and I mean that as a relief. The fix is not becoming expressive, please don't. Nobody needs a version of you that narrates your feelings in real time. That would be a horror movie for everyone who knows you, including you. And this is not one of those videos where the answer is that you should start journaling. The fix is one sentence, said out loud, at the exact moment your face goes still. Something like, "Give me a second, I'm thinking." Or, "I'm not upset, I'm just reading this." That's it. 6 words that hand people the middle you've been hiding for 35 years. You're not sharing your feelings. You're just labeling the pause so nobody has to guess what's inside it. Try it once. One person, the next time you catch yourself going quiet, and you see them start doing the math on your face. And if you decide not to, if you decide at 56 that you built this on purpose, that it has served you and the people you love, and you're keeping it exactly as is, that is a completely legitimate answer. I'd only ask for one thing. Make sure it's a decision you're making today, as an adult with options, and not a rule handed to you at 19 in a room with bad chairs by people who were doing their best and never got the chance to reconsider it. Which brings us back to the doorway. Somebody's going to stop there again. This week, probably. Half a second, wait on the back foot, waiting to find out what kind of day it is before they commit to the sentence. Nothing about that has to change. The coffee's still cold. The lamp's still on. You're still the person they came to, which is the part that's easy to forget. They came to you. Out of everyone, you. That pause isn't a review of your character. It's the price of a door that's been closed so long, people forgot there was somebody behind it, holding it shut so the weather wouldn't get in. You can open it a couple of inches. Or not. But now you know what the half second is, and you're the only one in the room who does. I want to hear about a specific moment, not a feeling. When was the first time somebody told you that you were intimidating or serious or hard to read and got it completely wrong? How old were you? Where were you standing? And what had actually been going on in your head right before they said it? That last part is the one I care about, because that gap between what your face was doing and what you were actually thinking is the entire subject of this video. And if you can't remember a specific time, tell me that instead. Tell me that nobody has ever said it out loud and you found out some other way. That's an answer too, and it's usually a longer story. There's another version of this I've been circling for a while. It's not the person people are careful around, it's the opposite one. The person everybody in the family finds incredibly easy to talk to. The one who gets every phone call, every crisis, every long conversation at the kitchen table at midnight. The one who is available to absolutely everyone. Same generation, same childhood, sometimes the same house. Completely different strategy, and I'm not sure it costs less. That's the one I want to do next.